Belfast, as you know, is the factory of this island. They've got about 2 million, not Belfast, sorry, let me talk about the north first. The north of Ireland, those 6 counties have about 2 million people living in them. Then you've got Belfast, which very like Dublin, because it is the 2nd largest city on the island of Ireland. Very like Dublin, you've got about 351,000 of those 2 million living in the heart of the city. And then you've got the sprawl of the city. So altogether, it's about 675,000 living all around the city. That's most of the population are in Belfast. Very, very much like Dublin. Not dissimilar at all. In the early days, which is what Belfast is renowned for, they were famous for linen. They were the largest exporter of linen. Again, ports and plantation. Direct result of all of that industry being created and shipped out as exports for money. You've got rope making, massive industry in rope making here because the world's largest shipyard was here, Harlan and Wolff. They employed 30,000 people themselves. We'll see the 2 big yellow cranes that they used to use. They are still there on the port when we drive by. I'll point them out. They also used to make bricks out of clay. That's not done anymore. They make bricks out of cement now, cement block, but not anything like what they once did. You'll probably have noticed that the houses here are not that whitewash, but like Ireland, they are red brick, many of the houses here, because they manufactured so many of them and exported so many of them. And tobacco. Tobacco was not grown here. Obviously, we do not have the climate for tobacco, but the largest exporter of tobacco was here in Europe, and that was Gallagher's. They actually bought from American plantations in Kentucky and Virginia, and they were going gangbusters. They bring the tobacco leaves here. Women, very much like the millies in the mills, they, in dairy, was the same in Belfast. They would separate the leaves from the stems, and they would turn them into chewing tobacco, cut tobacco, plug tobacco, pipe tobacco, and also cigarettes. And they were doing so well that they actually, Gallagher's, bought farms in the United States, in Kentucky and in Virginia, so that they could grow their own crops of tobacco and bring them over here. Now that doesn't happen anymore. Those days are gone as well. Shipbuilding, though, interestingly enough, that has come back. Harlan and Wolff are back in the shipbuilding industry. After Titanic, a lot of jobs were lost here. That was a massive knock in the pride of Belfast. And the industry slowed down. Harlan and Wolff eventually laid down tools for shipbuilding and began to fix, eventually, the big oil rigs, because we're talking about a massive port. They would bring in oil rigs and they would be fixed in the Belfast port. And now they're fixing wind turbines, anything big. They refit and retrofit cruise ships. Any kind of ship can come in and get its work done. One ship was actually stuck here for 6 months or something. Something went wrong with it. All of the people who paid for this voyage were stuck living on it in Belfast. But they do a lot of work on boats here, but they also have a contract now for 3 naval vessels. So they are in the shipbuilding industry once more, which is brilliant for Belfast. But though that is what put Belfast on the map, that kind of phenomenal fortitude and money-making from ports. It was all about ports. So much so that they had a bullseye on them during World War II. They were very, very badly hit. Our guide tomorrow, Susie, she's fabulous. She will tell you more about the Blitz, it's called. Over 1,000 people in Belfast were killed because of raids. I guess they just did not think that the enemy was going to, that Germany was going to get that close. They just didn't think they'd fly that far away from themselves to here. But it was the 16th largest loss of life for the UK, happened right here on this island. A lot of the families had to leave because their houses were completely destroyed. They were leveled by bombs. So they would go down the country. I have a colleague who's a guide, Lynn. Her whole family, lock, stock, and barrel, moved down to the Republic of Ireland until the coast was clear, and then they came back up here. So it was a horrendous time for them. Whole communities were wiped out. And it came from being that booming industrial town, rebuilding itself after the sinking of the Titanic, and just getting on its feet and doing well. And then the troubles started. And between 1969 and the end of the 1970s, they had lost 100,000 jobs in Belfast. Nobody wanted to be based here, no industry. It was not safe. Over 4,000 people were killed in the 30 years of the Troubles, and everywhere you went, you had to just put your arms up. If you were going into the shopping center, there would be armed guards there. The British soldiers, they would search you, you would open your bag, they would search your bag, you would go in. You could not drive your car into town unless you had a second person who was going to be able to sit in it, because that could be a bomb. You had to leave someone in it to prove it wasn't going to blow up. Otherwise, you couldn't do it. And when things got really, really bad, 1969, they sent boots on the ground to Ireland because the Loyalists burnt out a number of streets in the Catholic area. And England's answer was, let's get the soldiers there, let's get these paramilitary Loyalists back in order. And the people in the Catholic communities actually brought them out tea and scones. They were so relieved that they had come to this island to help them. They felt that they now would be protected. But these were kids, for the most part, teenagers. They had no idea what was going on here. They didn't understand the complexity. To them, it was Catholic and Protestant. And it didn't take long before they no longer protected the Catholics, but they were totally on side with the police force and the British soldiers who came before them. And again, the Catholics had nobody. It was the power brokers were the Loyalists. They were here to keep the north of Ireland in tow and connected to the UK. And anybody who disagreed with that end goal was not a favored person. They were going to be harassed and marginalized, and that's exactly what happened. So the provisional IRA then retaliate as guerrilla warfare. You know yourself. There's an atrocity committed, and then it's answered with another atrocity. And this went on for years, and until 1971, when they brought in internment. And as I told you, it was not like our ICE raids in America. They could take anybody with no charge, and you had no idea where they were being taken to either. And they could take them any hour of the day or the night and from any place. They had carte blanche. So it was a horrendous time here, and it absolutely devastated the economy. They were heavily subsidized. They would get blanket grants from England. And so they'd get a lump of money, it would be sent to Belfast, and Belfast would dole it out to whoever needed it the most. So you can only imagine that infrastructure was declining, social services were declining, and people began to leave. People began to move to America, to mainland England. If you've seen the movie Belfast, you'll see, it's actually really a lovely movie, but you'll see how that family decided that they were going to leave Northern Ireland and move to England. And the parents decided that because they wanted their children to have half a chance. I remember touring in Northern Ireland as a young singer, and I remember being stopped one night on the way home. This was It was 1980, it was the 80s, because my son was 3 years old and he was born in 1979. So add that up, I'm on the road. My sister flew from Michigan to mind him while I was on tour. And we were driving home one night, decided not to go by the border, the official border. We just didn't want to meet people with machine guns in the middle of the night. So we were going from Belfast to Donegal. So we decided to take a back road where we wouldn't meet soldiers and we wouldn't have to take out our passports and all the rest of it. Anyway, it was a very black, dark night. There was no moon. And we were driving away. We had had a great gig. It was fabulous. And we all of a sudden saw this massive bright light down the road turn on. It wasn't natural. And we realized that it was the British Army. Okay, what are we going to do? Okay, slow down, slow down. Okay, why don't we just stop? Which we did. And these soldiers came out of the ditches with flak jackets and machine guns. I cannot tell you how terrifying that was. All I thought was, oh my God, I've got to get home to my son. And I did not tour here again for a very, very long time as a result. But we all got out of the car. They asked for our passports. We told them we were musicians. They asked us to empty out our pockets. And this was the cassette money. You know, we were selling cassettes. And I pulled out the money and some of it started to blow out of my hand. So I went to grab the money. And one of them took his gun and he pointed at me like he was aiming for my chest to push me back. And I just, wow. I stood back and I said, look, I'm a mother, please, I don't want any trouble. And then he asked, did we sing any songs that were subversive to the crown? Those were his exact words. And I said, no. I said, we have cassettes in the trunk. I'll show you the cassette. You can look at the title of the songs yourself. There's no rebel songs. We don't sing rebel songs. Anyway, they finally let us go. But it was harrowing. Then later on that tour, we were all sitting in a restaurant waiting for our dinner to come out before we went back to the venue to do our show. And the dinner was not coming out and not coming out, and they clearly had forgotten about us. So I got up and walked over to the kitchen to just say, hey, we have a show tonight. We're part of the festival. Can we have our dinner? And all the waitresses were standing around crying. One of their neighbors had been killed on his way home from work, and he had a lot of children. So we just got up and left. But that was the mood, that was the atmosphere. It was awful. So grateful. Still to this day, Bill Clinton is thought so highly of, and Americans are thought so highly of because of the Good Friday Agreement, 1998, the IRA eventually decommissioned, the UVF, UDA decommissioned, and Ian Paisley of the DUP sat down with Martin McGuinness, and a real power sharing was attempted. It took many years for a power sharing government to take hold. Clinton came back a number of times. As I told you, he sent Gary Hart, he sent Mitchell back, but it happened. And he got American investment to come over to Ireland and put money into the communities. And they're still massive employers to this day. So we're going to drive through, which would not be my choice. We're going to drive through two hardline communities that still exist in Belfast. Sadly, that will be your first introduction to it. I would just ask you to keep in mind that these are very poor working class communities, and they are still dyed-in-the-wool unionist communities and nationalist communities. You may see flag flying, you'll see lots of murals, and they will show you who their community is in solidarity with. We will go by some peace walls, which sadly in that area do still lock at night. And they asked the populace here in the 6 counties, when would you like the walls to be taken down? Because that's part of the Good Friday Agreement. Cameron projected it would be 2025, and he wanted them dismantled by the people, not by some company that would be hired. And they weren't ready for this year. They've asked for another couple of years. Now you look at Derry and you see the walls there. They're elegant, they don't look threatening. The walls here in Belfast are ugly, and they feel ugly when you look at them. So we'll show you that piece that is still there today, and then we'll go into downtown Belfast where we're staying, and you'll see that nobody wants to go back to that. Nobody wants to go back to that. There are, as I've said many times, there are children born here now, and 21, 22, who've never known the hate or the segregation. They've never known the fear, So just keep that in mind, please. I wish we could do this backwards, but it just serves our purpose. So I'm going to put on some Belfast music here in a minute, but first let me tell you what makes Belfast tick today. They are in the top